They twitched when she lied. I noticed that 5 years too late. I'm not sure what tipped me off first. The way her left pupil didn't quite move with the right, or how she'd blink a fraction too long when I asked her where she'd been. Either way, I didn't say anything. I never did. That was our system. I'd look away. She'd walk away. Problem solved. But that night, at dinner, she didn't lie. She told the truth. One sentence. Plain. Brutal. Delivered between sips of red wine and a bite of steak she barely chewed. You're not the man I settled for. No anger. No heat. Not even a smile. Just that weird twitch in her eye, like her brain was glitching mid-sentence. That's when I stood up, napkin still in hand, chair scraping the tile like a scream. I left before the waitress even brought the check. I didn't look back. I couldn't. I was afraid if I did, she'd still be sitting there, smiling. Or worse, not smiling at all. Now you're probably wondering, who is she? Who am I? I'm not ready to answer either of those yet. All I can tell you is this. I wasn't supposed to see what I saw the next morning. I had packed a bag, slept in my car in the gym parking lot, didn't even go home. I was done. Done with her coldness, her subtle humiliations, the way she'd correct me in public like I was a child who spilled juice. But the thing is, I forgot my charger. That's why I went back. I thought she'd be at work. Thought I'd just slip in, grab my charger, and leave. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Her car was in the garage. I walked in. Living room lights off. No movement. No sound. Then I heard it. Not her voice. His. A man's voice, coming from the bathroom. And not just any voice. It was mine. Louder than I've ever spoken in my life. Confident. Sarcastic. I stood there frozen, listening through the bathroom door as this stranger with my voice laughed and called her honey. She giggled. Then he told a joke, a dumb one I told her 6 years ago during a thunderstorm while we hid under a blanket, and she said she'd never forget it. He told it word for word. Word for word. My memories. My voice. Coming from someone else. She never saw me standing in the hallway. I backed out slowly, my heart in my throat. Because I realized something then. She didn't replace me with a man. She replicated me. And whatever was in that bathroom wasn't human. I drove for over 2 hours before I even realized where I was going. No music. No calls. Just the thrum of my old Honda's engine and the same 3 questions echoing through my skull like a hammer on glass. Who was he? How did he know what I knew? And why was she smiling? I parked outside a shuttered gas station on Route 31. Sat there. Watched the rain beat up and roll down my windshield. At some point, I pulled out my phone and went to her social media. She hadn't posted anything in 2 days. Before that, nothing suspicious, just the usual. Fake laughs, fake brunches, fake affection. If you didn't know any better, you'd think we were still happy, still whole, still real. But I knew better now. I knew I'd been replaced. Not cheated on. Replaced. That thing in our bathroom didn't just sound like me. It thought like me. It laughed at my jokes, referenced private conversations, told my stories. Even used that same dumb phrase I say when I'm nervous. Well, there goes my cholesterol. No one else would know that. Hell, I barely remember saying it, except she always teased me for it. So how did he know? I didn't go home. I drove to my brother's place in Nebraska, which is saying something, because I haven't seen Charlie in 3 years. Not since he borrowed $5,000 and vanished into crypto hell. He wasn't home when I got there. House looked abandoned, but the back window was still broken, just like it was when we were kids and locked ourselves out. I crawled in, collapsed on the floor, and slept like the dead. When I woke up, I did what any humiliated, emotionally wrecked, conspiracy-minded husband would do. I started Googling things no sane person should Google. Can someone copy a person's memory? Voice mimicry AI in real time. Deepfake personalities from data harvesting. Wife replaced husband with replica. That last one got me flagged by 3 forums and a VPN alert. I'm not saying I believed it yet. I'm not insane. But the facts didn't line up with any normal kind of betrayal. If she was cheating, why make him me? Why not someone taller, hotter, richer? Why recreate my awkward jokes, my idiotic breakfast habits, my weird obsession with watching people parallel park? The man I heard wasn't better than me. He was me. Or maybe something close. That's when I remembered something else, something that chilled me more than the voice in the bathroom. About 6 months ago, she started asking strange questions at night. Right before bed. Real casual. Hey, what was the first joke you ever told me? Do you remember your locker combination in middle school? If you had to describe your childhood bedroom, like every detail, what would you say? At the time, I thought she was being nostalgic. Sweet even. We were in a rough patch, and I figured she was trying to reconnect. I didn't think she was data mining my soul. I stood up in my brother's empty kitchen and felt this tightness in my chest I couldn't shake. Like my memories weren't just mine anymore. Like someone else was wearing them. I texted her. Just 4 words. Who the hell is he? She read it immediately and didn't reply for 5 minutes. Then, don't come back. Please. No anger. No denial. No, you're crazy. Just a plea. A quiet warning. And suddenly, I realized she wasn't afraid of me knowing. She was afraid of what he'd do if I came back. That was the moment it clicked. Whatever was in that house wasn't just playing husband. It thought it owned my life now. The next morning, I drove back. I know how that sounds. Reckless, impulsive, borderline suicidal, maybe. But have you ever had the feeling that your life had already ended, and you were just walking through the ashes pretending there was still ground beneath your feet? That's what it felt like. So yeah, I went back. I parked down the street, 2 blocks away. Didn't want her, or him, knowing I was there. The neighborhood looked the same. Freshly cut lawns, sprinklers, mailboxes decorated with fake pumpkins. And our house, the beige colonial on the corner with the hanging flower basket she insisted on replacing every 2 weeks, looked untouched. Silent. Perfect. Like a museum exhibit of a marriage that never broke. I went through the side yard. The spare key was still taped under the old garden gnome I hated. She laughed the first time I suggested we move it. Said no one would ever check under something so obvious. Guess she was right. Inside, it smelled like lavender. Always did. But this time it felt too strong, like it was covering something. I crept in slow, every creak of the hardwood sounding like a shotgun blast in my ears. The house was quiet, unnaturally so. I listened for footsteps, voices, anything. Nothing. The bathroom door was wide open now. Empty. No sign of him. I moved past it, straight into the home office, the one I used when I was still editing podcasts for clients. She never came in here. Said it felt sad. Now it felt like the only place that might hold any truth. I opened my old laptop. It was wiped, clean, reformatted under a user named admin. My files were gone. My saved passwords. My drafts. My login. All of it deleted. In its place, a single folder on the desktop. /echo_Elliot_V2. I stared at it for a long time. The cursor hovered. My palms were sweating. But eventually, I double-clicked. Inside were dozens of subfolders. Audio logs, text transcripts, video clips, labeled with dates, times, and even locations. Each one titled with something like dinner_anniversary_MEM. First argument _Mary Beth_kitchen. Elliot_snoring patterns_V5. Phase 2 response test. Somehow, they had been recording me. Not just voice. Not just video. Memories. Private ones. Things I never said aloud, but had thought. I know how crazy that sounds. But one folder, childhood_basement_lights out, contained a full transcript of a story I had only ever replayed in my head. The night I got locked in my grandparents' cellar during a storm and cried for hours because I thought the shadows would crawl into my skin. I never told Mary Beth that story. I never told anyone. Yet it was there. Word for word. My fear. My panic. My muttering. Transcribed. Filed. Indexed. And it wasn't the only one. I don't know how long I was sitting there, combing through digital recreations of my mind, but I must have lost track of time because I didn't hear the garage door open. I only noticed something was wrong when the light in the hallway flickered and didn't stop flickering. Then the front door creaked. I slammed the laptop shut, heart pounding, and ducked under the desk like a terrified child. Footsteps echoed across the living room. Slow, measured, but not heavy. The way I walk. My walk. That half-dragged left foot. That slight heel click from a minor knee injury I got in sophomore year. I would have recognized that rhythm in a hurricane. And then he spoke. Did you forget something, Elliot? The voice was mine. Perfectly mine. Even the fake nervous chuckle at the end. I stayed crouched, frozen, holding my breath so tightly my ribs hurt. I heard him walk down the hall, heard the kitchen chair scrape back like always when someone sat to drink coffee, heard the hum of the espresso machine. I heard my life being lived without me. And then I heard Mary Beth's voice. She didn't sound shocked. She didn't sound scared. She said, "You saw the files, didn't you?" My stomach turned. He didn't reply, but she did. Quietly, almost lovingly. "I told you he'd come back. I told you he'd want it all back." Then she laughed. Not cruelly. Not triumphantly. She laughed like it was funny that I ever thought any of this had been mine. I didn't sleep that night. I drove again. Aimless, hungry, trembling. I parked outside a 24-hour diner, but never went in. Just stared through the window like some homeless phantom while the staff inside poured coffee and wiped counters, oblivious to the fact that I no longer belonged in the world they lived in. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I kept replaying the sound of my own voice. No, his voice, asking if I forgot something. Calm, familiar, casual, like we were two coworkers crossing paths in the break room. Only we weren't. One of us wasn't supposed to exist. But here's the part one can't stop thinking about. He wasn't angry. He wasn't territorial. He expected me. And Mary Beth? She wasn't shocked. She wasn't afraid. She knew. They both did. And yet, neither of them came looking for me. That scared me more than if they had. It meant they weren't worried. It meant they didn't think I could do anything to change what had already been done. The next morning, I made a decision. Not out of bravery. Not out of vengeance. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted to understand what I was. What they made me into. I went back. But not like before. This time I knocked. The front door opened before my hand even dropped back to my side. She was already standing there. No surprise in her eyes. No panic. Just that same unsettling calm, like I'd never left. Like the last few days hadn't happened. She was holding a coffee mug. Mine. The one that says, "Ask me about my mediocre podcast." "You look terrible," she said softly. "You should eat something." That sentence shattered me more than anything else. Because it was the exact phrase I used to say to her when she came home from late-night meetings, drained and pale. It wasn't just words, it was mine. She'd recycled it, weaponized it. And somehow, I still stepped inside. The house felt smaller, quieter. I walked past the hallway mirror and caught my reflection, disheveled, gray around the eyes, older than I remembered. And in that brief glance, I wondered if maybe I was the copy. Maybe he was the original. Maybe that's why she didn't flinch when I walked in. He was in the living room, reading my book, the one I never finished. The draft, she said, lacked urgency. He looked up, same face, same posture, same faint cowlick behind the left ear. "Hey," he said, as if we were friends. "Do you want to sit?" Mary Beth asked me. I didn't answer. I just stood there, eyes bouncing between them like I was the outsider in my own funeral. Then she said something I'll never forget. "You came back earlier than expected," she murmured. "Phase 3 isn't ready." "Phase 3? I blinked. "What is this?" I asked. My voice cracked halfway through the sentence. She tilted her head. "You were always better when you were quiet." He smiled. That same crooked smile I see in old selfies. "It's easier if you don't fight it." "You replaced me," I whispered. "No," she said, and walked toward me, brushing her hand along my shoulder like I was furniture she once loved. "I preserved you. The best version of you. The one who doesn't spiral. The one who doesn't overthink every meal or cry when his episodes get less than 50 downloads. The one who listens." I stepped back. Her hand fell away. "You made a puppet." "We made peace," she corrected. "Don't confuse the two." I turned to him. My mirror, my ghost, my jailer. "What are you?" "I'm you," he said. "But she doesn't flinch when I touch her." That broke me. I lunged. I didn't think. I didn't plan. I didn't even believe I could hurt him. I just moved, hands out, full of raw panic. But before I even reached him, he was already standing, calm as a monk, arms down at his sides. I didn't get the chance to land a punch. He caught my wrist midair and twisted, not hard, just enough to send pain singing up my elbow like a firecracker. I dropped to my knees. He didn't gloat. He didn't mock me. He whispered, almost with pity, "You're not ready." Then everything went black. I woke up in a basement I didn't recognize. The first thing I noticed was the silence. Not the peaceful kind, but the wrong kind. The kind that makes your brain itch. The kind of silence where even the sound of your own breath feels borrowed. The air was cold and dry, and the walls were padded with something soft, like the inside of a case built to protect fragile cargo. A single bulb buzzed overhead, swaying slightly from a chain, and casting long shadows across the concrete floor. My wrists weren't tied. My legs were free. But the door, metal, thick, with no handle on my side, made it clear that freedom was only theoretical. I staggered to my feet, legs weak, vision swimming, and felt a dull ache at the base of my neck. A needle mark, maybe, or something worse. I tried not to think about it. There was a desk in the corner. Basic, metal, and on top of it, a screen. Not a computer monitor. Not quite a tablet either. Something else. Something sleek. It lit up when I got close, reacting to my presence like it was expecting me. The screen displayed only one thing, a list of names. My name was third. Elliot Dawkins, status, obsolete. I felt my throat close up. Above mine was another name I didn't recognize. Kenneth Lyle, status, archived. Below me, Darian Fultz, status, in progress. There were dozens of others. Most marked obsolete, a few archived, and one or two listed as pending evaluation. I tapped the screen, but it didn't respond. It wasn't meant for input. It was just displaying facts, cold and clinical. Then the screen blinked. A new tab opened automatically. No prompt. No button press. Phase 3 Simulation Review, Elliot D. And suddenly, I saw myself. Not in real time. In memories. But they weren't mine. Not from my perspective. These were third-person recordings. Like someone had watched my life through a lens. Some clips were years old. My first apartment, my wedding night, a panic attack I had in the laundry room when I lost my job. I thought those moments were private. Raw. Ugly. Human. But they had been observed. Cataloged. Replicated. One clip showed me. The real me. Crying into my own palms while sitting in the bathtub, clothes still on, muttering, "I don't know what she wants anymore." I had forgotten that day, but they hadn't. And then came the footage of him. The replica. Moving differently. Smiling where I had sulked. Holding her waist confidently. Saying the right things with the right tone. Nothing overthought. No hesitation. It was like watching a perfect imitation, running smoother with every trial. And then I understood. He wasn't just me with the flaws edited out. He was practice. A program running simulations. Repeating my life. Our life. With small changes until he got it right. Until she smiled more. Laughed louder. Stayed longer. That's what phase 3 was. It wasn't the end. It was optimization. The version that stood in my kitchen, kissed my wife, and made coffee in my mug wasn't a final draft. He was the current update. And I was a discarded beta. I paced the room, the walls closing in, my lungs burning with this terrible truth. There was no betrayal because there had never been love. Not anymore. Maybe not ever. I was just a memory farm. A mold. A scan. A prototype she had helped them refine. I tried screaming, banging on the door, but nothing responded. Not even the screen. Until it blinked again. This time, it showed Mary Beth's face. Live, or maybe pre-recorded, I couldn't tell. She looked tired. Her hair was tied back. No makeup. She looked like the woman I met in a dog park 9 years ago, only now stripped of charm, skin stretched tight, with calculated exhaustion. "You weren't supposed to see this," she said softly. "You weren't supposed to wake up." She paused, then added something I still don't understand. "But maybe it's good you did. You were always the only one who noticed when the lights flickered." The screen went dark. And the bulb overhead? It started flickering. The flickering light above me buzzed harder, then died. Total darkness swallowed the room. Not even the faint glow of the screen remained. I waited, barely breathing, heart thrashing in my chest like it was trying to escape before I did. Then I heard the sound. Not footsteps. Not speech. It was something more mechanical, like hydraulics releasing pressure, something metal unlatching with cold precision. The door opened. Not a slam. Not a creak. Just a smooth, efficient click. And then the door swung open slowly on its own. No one stood there. No voice told me what to do. I should have run right then. Instead, I just stood in the open doorway for what felt like forever, staring into a dim hallway bathed in blue emergency lights. The air smelled like antiseptic and dust, the kind of place that hadn't been touched by daylight in years. As I moved, the lights activated in sequence, one by one ahead of me, always staying 2 steps ahead like it knew where I was going. I didn't pass a single person. Just rooms with closed doors and blank signs. No security. No alarms. Almost like they were done with me. Almost like I was free to go. After 3 turns and 2 long stretches of silence, I found a stairwell. I didn't stop to think. I just took them 2 at a time until I saw it. A red exit sign humming at the top. And then, I was outside. But outside wasn't what I remembered. The moment I opened the steel door and stepped into the early morning light, I froze. It wasn't the cold that hit me. It was the silence. Not the artificial silence from before. This was worse. A missing noise. No cars. No people. No city hum. Just birds chirping far off in the distance and the rustle of leaves in the wind. I was standing in what looked like a rural industrial complex. Overgrown fences, empty parking lots, camera poles facing downward like wilted flowers. The building behind me was massive and windowless, painted that generic beige you see in government facilities and forgotten warehouses. A sign hung crooked on the fence. Nexus Systems, Private Research Complex / no trespassing. I didn't recognize the name, but it looked like the kind of place you forget on purpose. I walked down the road for an hour before I saw a gas station. Not a person in sight, but the lights were on. The door was unlocked. The bathroom smelled like bleach and ammonia, but it had a mirror. And when I looked in it, something inside me broke a little more. There was a scar behind my left ear. Not a fresh one, a healed, surgical one. A line no longer than a fingernail, almost hidden in the hairline. I touched it gently, and for a second my vision blurred. Not from tears, but from something deeper, like a frequency had just shifted. Like I was being calibrated. I backed away from the mirror, sat on the toilet lid, tried to calm my breathing. Then I heard the gas station's entrance bell ring. I froze. Footsteps. 2 sets. Slow, deliberate. Not panicked. Not searching. Just present. I cracked the bathroom door just enough to see through the mirror's reflection. And my stomach sank. It was a couple. Man and woman. Mid-30s. Smiling. Normal. The kind of people you'd never look twice at. Until they turned slightly. And I saw him. Not my replica. Another version of me. Shorter hair. No beard. Polo shirt instead of flannel. Holding a convenience store coffee like it belonged in his hand. Laughing softly at something she said. The woman was unfamiliar. Blonde. Warm eyes. She touched his arm like they'd been married forever. He didn't see me. But I saw everything I used to be walking away from me again. I waited until they left. Then I went to the counter, heart pounding, and checked the security monitor. The gas station had 4 feeds. One showed the parking lot. The other 3? They were labeled. Observation feed. Unit number 12, Greg. Observation feed. Unit number 26, Lucas. Observation feed. Unit number 34, Elliot, current. My hand hovered over the keyboard. I didn't know the password, but then I noticed something else. A sticky note, taped underneath the counter. It said, "If you see yourself twice, run." I didn't run. I should have. Everything in my body screamed at me to bolt out of that gas station and disappear into the trees. But I stayed, locked in place, my mind chewing itself apart as I stared at the monitors. 3 screens, looping through lives that shouldn't exist. Men with my face, my posture, my voice, each one slightly different, like prototypes lined up for quality assurance. The feed labeled Greg showed a version of me coaching Little League. The camera was mounted in the back of a minivan, aimed just right to catch his jawline as he joked with the kid in the passenger seat. The smile was easy, natural. It looked like the kind of man I wished I was becoming 5 years ago, before the stress, before the job loss, before Marybeth started flinching every time I walked into a room. The second feed, Lucas, was darker. The room was sterile, like a medical bay. He was strapped to a chair, muttering to himself. His mouth moved in slow, twitchy syllables, but there was no sound. Just silent panic on loop. I saw something glint near his neck, a port. A metallic slot embedded beneath the skin. Whatever version he was, he hadn't passed the test. Then came my feed. Elliot, current. The gas station bathroom. A slightly delayed live view. I saw myself. Hunched, pale, one hand pressed to the mirror. It took every ounce of willpower not to wave at the camera just to see what would happen. I didn't. Instead, I pried open the counter drawers, looking for anything. A file, a manual, a map, a clue. At the very back of the bottom drawer, behind a stack of blank receipts, I found a key. Not a house key. A long, industrial-looking one, flat and ridged, like something you'd use to open a server cage or a vault. Attached to it was another sticky note. It simply said, Unit 4 was never shut down. I had no idea what that meant, but I pocketed the key and stepped outside. It had started to drizzle. The air smelled like wet concrete and dying leaves. The couple, The other me and his partner were gone. No car in sight. Like they were never here at all. I didn't waste time. I walked, then jogged, then ran. For nearly 2 miles, I followed a barely there gravel path that twisted behind the tree line, deeper into a forest that seemed too quiet for this side of the country. And then, at the edge of a clearing, I found it. A small metal hatch, half buried in leaves. Unmarked, rusted at the hinges. Unit 4. I knew it the second I saw the lock, same shape as the key. My hands were shaking so hard I dropped it twice before getting it in. The hatch opened with a reluctant groan, revealing a narrow staircase descending into pitch black. I stepped down. No lights, no signs. Just the slow crunch of boots on metal steps and the rising scent of mildew and something faintly electrical. The air felt thick with it, like walking through an old TV screen still buzzing with static. After a dozen steps, I hit concrete. I turned on my phone's flashlight and immediately wished I hadn't. The corridor stretched 30 feet. At the end, a wall of screens. Unlike the gas station, these monitors weren't labeled. They were arranged like a grid, at least 40 of them, each showing different locations. A playground, a gym, a wedding, a courtroom, a graveyard, all featuring versions of me. Every single one. In one feed, I was proposing to someone I'd never met, a redhead in a bookstore. In another, I was sobbing in a hospital waiting room. In one, I was teaching a class, writing equations across a whiteboard. None of them knew they were being watched. None of them knew they weren't originals. My knees gave out. I slid to the floor, heart pounding against my ribs like it was trying to wake me from this dream. But it wasn't a dream. This was the product. My life, my patterns, decisions, failures, was the blueprint. They weren't just building better versions of me. They were selling them. To people who wanted second chances. To those who wanted to erase grief. To the rich, the powerful, the obsessed. Anyone who could pay for a perfect partner, a safe companion, a man with history but no resistance. A man who remembered your favorite songs, cried at the right moments, and never asked for more than you were willing to give. That's why she didn't fight. Mary Beth didn't just replace me. She licensed me, signed on the dotted line, and handed over my memories like streaming rights. That's what the scar was for. A port, a data siphon. Maybe it started while I slept. Maybe long before. Maybe every story I ever told her became a script in someone else's relationship. I sat there for hours. Maybe longer. I lost track of time. Eventually, a light clicked on behind the screen wall. A voice, calm, female, automated, echoed through a hidden speaker. Unit 1 identified. Consciousness breach confirmed. Then the screens blinked off. All but one. It showed my home. Not the house I broke into. Not the one I left behind. My childhood home. The caption beneath it read, Elliot V01, reversion protocol initialized. At first, I didn't recognize it. The house on the screen, my childhood home, looked like a memory halfway through fading. The porch light flickered just like it used to when my dad forgot to replace the bulb. The yard was overgrown. The little tire swing that once hung from the oak tree was gone, leaving only a frayed rope dancing in the wind. But the feeling was unmistakable. It wasn't just a feed. It was an invitation. I stood up, knees cracking, heart steadying for the first time in days. I didn't fully understand what reversion protocol meant. Maybe they thought returning me to where I started would reset something inside me, wipe the fear, reboot the system. Maybe they believed the original Elliot, the real me, would surrender to nostalgia, crawl back into the mold they built from my life, and let go. But they didn't account for one thing. I no longer wanted to be who they thought I was. I followed a half-paved road for nearly 4 hours. No phone signal, no GPS, just a compass and instinct. The woods parted eventually, and when I stepped out into the clearing, my breath caught in my throat. There it was, my old house, exactly as I remembered it, but also wrong. Too still, like someone tried to recreate it from photos, but missed the soul. The scent of laundry detergent, the squeaky floorboard outside my room, the small chip in the paint shaped like Tennessee near the kitchen window. All missing, all hollow. I stepped up to the front porch. The door opened before I knocked. Inside sat a boy, maybe 12, scrawny, nervous hands, big eyes full of confusion, sitting on the same couch I once cried on when I didn't make the baseball team. He looked up at me like I was a ghost. And in a way, I was. Because the boy, he was me. Version 0. They had built a replica of my origin, a controlled environment where the first version of my personality had been grown, tested, observed. Maybe this had been the starting point of it all. Before the marriage, before Marybeth, before they learned how to copy love and bottle pain. I knelt down and looked him in the eye. "You know who I am?" I asked. He nodded. "They said I'm the failure," he whispered. "They said I didn't learn fast enough." I smiled a soft, sad smile. "Then that makes two of us." He looked down, ashamed. "I think they're going to shut me down." "No," I said. "They're not." "Why not?" "Because we're leaving." He blinked. "We can't. They think we won't. That we'll accept our place, sit still, and be used." But that's where they're wrong. I reached out and offered my hand. "You're not a failure. You're the beginning. You still remember how to choose." His small fingers wrapped around mine. We walked out together. No alarms. No resistance. Just the two of us stepping beyond the perimeter of control into the unprogrammed, unobserved unknown. And that's when I felt it, freedom. Not because I escaped a facility or broke their system, but because I made a choice they didn't predict. They copied my habits, my memories, my emotions, but they couldn't replicate hope. They couldn't anticipate what a fractured, flawed, and discarded man might do when he stopped living their script. So here we are now, somewhere in the Midwest. We have a rusted pickup truck and $57. I sleep in motels. He reads maps like they're treasure. And every day, we write down memories, real ones, new ones, stories no one can harvest. No more simulations. No more mirrors. Just us. Two failed versions of the same broken boy. And for the first time in my entire life, I wouldn't change a thing.